chosen one, before you scroll pause. There's a pressure around this moment that isn't accidental. You didn't click this by chance, and the timing is not random. Something has been circling your life lately, pressure without explanation, resistance without a clear source, strange attacks that don't match your actions. You've felt watched in the spiritual sense, weighed down in moments that should feel light, misunderstood in rooms where you brought nothing but sincerity. This is not because you are weak. It's because you are marked, and the enemy knows it. Let me say this plainly. Because your spirit already feels it, even if your mind keeps questioning it. The intensity you're experiencing is proportional to the calling on your life. Ordinary people do not attract extraordinary resistance. Average paths are not monitored. If nothing significant were inside you, there would be no reason for opposition to gather so aggressively around your steps. The enemy does not waste energy on empty vessels. It studies potential, it watches trajectory, and when it recognizes someone carrying purpose, it does not wait until that purpose fully awakens. It tries to disrupt it early. That's why some of the attacks you're facing don't make logical sense. You didn't provoke them. You didn't earn them through wrongdoing. They appeared the moment you began to grow, the moment you decided to heal, the moment you chose alignment over distraction, the moment you stopped shrinking to keep others comfortable. Resistance intensified. That wasn't coincidence. That was recognition. Something unseen realized you were slipping out of reach. You may have noticed envy rising from places that once felt safe. People who used to support you suddenly misunderstand you. Conversations feel colder. Energy shifts when you enter certain spaces. Even silence feels loud. This is not paranoia. This is discernment activating. When you are chosen, your presence alone exposes what others are trying to hide. You don't have to speak. You don't have to accuse. Your light does the confrontation for you, and not everyone is ready to face themselves. So the enemy works subtly, not always through obvious chaos, but through distraction, discouragement, delay. Through planting doubt in your thoughts at night, through replaying old wounds when you're finally trying to move forward, through convincing you that the exhaustion means you should quit. But hear this clearly: fatigue is not failure, resistance is not rejection. Opposition is not a sign to stop, it's confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. If you were walking the wrong path, there would be no resistance. The doors would be wide open, the road smooth, the compromise is easy. But you chose truth over comfort, depth over surface, purpose over popularity, and that choice alerted the enemy. That's why things feel heavier right now. That's why it seems like every step forward is met with a test. You are being refined in real time. There is a reason attacks often come right before breakthroughs. The enemy doesn't know the future, but it can sense momentum. It can feel when something is about to shift. It can hear when heaven starts rearranging things on your behalf. So it throws confusion before clarity arrives. It sends storms before elevation. It tries to exhaust you before the reward becomes visible. The goal is not always to destroy you. Sometimes it's simply to delay you long enough to make you doubt yourself. And that's the most dangerous battlefield of all, the mind. Because if it can convince you that you're imagining things, that you're overreacting, that you're not really chosen, then it doesn't need to stop you physically. You'll stop yourself. That's why this message is finding you now, to remind you that what you're experiencing is not a sign of madness. It's a sign of meaning. Look back at your life for a moment. You've survived things that should have broken you. You've walked through seasons where support disappeared, yet somehow you remained. You've been isolated not because you're difficult, but because you're different. There has always been a quiet protection around you. Even in the darkest moments, something intervened when it mattered most. That wasn't luck. That was assignment-level protection. The enemy noticed that too, so it tries to use people. It uses systems, it uses timing, it uses emotional triggers from your past. It knows which memories to replay and which fears to whisper. But here's what it cannot do: it cannot touch what is sealed. It cannot steal what is divinely assigned. It can only attempt to distract you from it. That's why your job right now is not to fight harder, but to stay aligned. Not to prove yourself, but to protect your peace. Not to explain your calling to people who benefit from misunderstanding you. Silence is not weakness in this season. Discernment is survival. You don't need to announce your next move. You don't need validation from those who can't see beyond the surface. What's being built in you is not meant for everyone's understanding. Some people are only meant to witness the result, not the process. And some will only realize your value once access is gone. If you've felt unusually tired, emotionally drained, or spiritually stretched, it's because growth is demanding something new from you. Old versions of you cannot carry what's coming, so they're being shed. And shedding can feel like loss before it feels like freedom. Stay steady, stay aware. The enemy is loud right before it loses leverage. The attacks mean you are closer than you think. And the fact that you're still standing, still seeking, still listening right now, after everything, proves something powerful. You are chosen, and the very resistance trying to stop you is the evidence. There is something else you need to understand, and this part is important, so don't rush past it. When you are chosen, the enemy doesn't only attack you directly. It studies your reactions. It watches how you respond under pressure. It pays attention to what breaks your focus and what steals your peace. That's why some battles feel repetitive, like the same lessons dressed in different faces, the same emotions triggered by new situations. This is not punishment. This is training. You are being strengthened in the exact areas where you will one day carry weight for others. You may have wondered why you can't go back to who you used to be, even when life feels easier that way. Why old habits no longer satisfy you. Why shallow conversations feel exhausting. Why you feel out of place even when nothing is wrong. That discomfort is not a flaw. It's an upgrade. You're outgrowing environments that once felt normal because your spirit is being tuned to something higher. And when that tuning happens, interference increases. The enemy thrives on noise, confusion, overstimulation. It wants you reacting instead of listening, rushing instead of discerning, explaining instead of observing. Because when you are quiet and centered, you hear too much. You see patterns. You notice inconsistencies. You recognize manipulation before it fully forms. That awareness is dangerous to anything operating in darkness, so pressure increases, deadlines feel tighter, expectations feel heavier. People demand more from you while giving less. You're tested emotionally, relationally, financially, spiritually, sometimes all at once. And the temptation is to believe that you're being singled out unfairly. But here's the truth most people never realize. You are being prepared privately for something that will be revealed publicly. Chosen ones are forged in hidden seasons, in misunderstood moments, in silent endurance. The enemy hates this phase because it can't fully see what's being built in you. It only senses that when you emerge, you won't be easily shaken, so it tries to get you to quit before clarity arrives, to numb yourself, to settle, to accept a smaller version of your destiny just to make the resistance stop. But notice this, despite everything, you're still here, still searching, still growing, still aware that there is more. That alone tells you the attacks haven't worked. You are not under attack because you are weak. You are under attack because you are disciplined enough to carry responsibility, because you are resilient enough to survive transformation, because you are trusted with insight that others would misuse, and because when you finally step fully into alignment, you won't just change your own life, you'll disrupt patterns around you. That's why isolation has been part of your journey, not to punish you, but to protect you. Not everyone who smiles at you wants you to rise. Not everyone who claps for you wants you to win. Some people are only comfortable with you as long as you stay beneath your potential. Distance is not abandonment when it's divinely arranged. It's preparation. If you felt moments of loneliness even when surrounded by people, it's because your spirit is ahead of your environment. You're carrying awareness that hasn't caught up to your surroundings yet, and that gap can feel heavy. But it's temporary. What the enemy doesn't want you to realize is that these attacks are time-limited. They peak right before transition. Pressure intensifies when a door is about to open. Resistance spikes when a cycle is about to end. And the fear you've been feeling lately isn't a warning of loss. It's the nervous system adjusting to expansion. So don't misinterpret the moment. Don't turn inward and blame yourself. Don't assume something is wrong with you. What's happening is that you're being moved, shifted, elevated, and not everything can come with you. Stay grounded. Stay aligned. You don't need to rush the process or force outcomes. What's meant for you is already tracking you. The enemy can sense it, but it can't stop it. And very soon, the same season that tested you will testify for you. Now listen closely, because this is where many chosen ones get confused. When the pressure doesn't stop, when the attacks feel layered and relentless, you start asking the wrong question. You ask, why is this happening to me? When the real question is, what is this trying to pull out of me? The enemy isn't just trying to block your path. It's trying to provoke a reaction that pulls you out of alignment. It wants you emotional instead of intentional, reactive instead of grounded, offended instead of focused. That's why certain situations feel designed to test your patience. Certain people seem assigned to push your buttons. Certain delays happen right when you're ready to move. These are not random frustrations. They are pressure points, and pressure reveals authority. When you don't collapse under it, when you don't become bitter, when you don't abandon your integrity just to escape discomfort, something shifts in the unseen. You gain weight, spiritual weight, presence, influence that doesn't need noise to be felt. The enemy hopes you'll misinterpret the battle and turn on yourself, that you'll start doubting your worth, questioning your sanity, minimizing your calling. It whispers that you're too much, too sensitive, too intense, too different. But that too much is exactly what makes you effective. You were never meant to fit neatly into systems that thrive on sameness. You were designed to disrupt, to awaken, to see beneath the surface and speak truth without needing permission. Pay attention to how often you're tempted to shrink, to stay quiet when you should stand firm, to over-explain yourself to people who already decided not to understand you. That urge doesn't come from humility, it comes from pressure. And pressure is often applied when your voice is close to carrying authority. The enemy fears clarity more than chaos. Once you see clearly, manipulation loses power. You may also notice that help arrives in unexpected ways, a message at the right time, a moment of peace in the middle of stress, strength that shows up when you thought you had none left. That's not coincidence. That's reinforcement. You are not fighting alone even when it feels lonely. There are layers of protection around you that you don't fully see yet, and interventions that happen quietly, without announcement. This is why you must guard your inner world, what you consume, what you entertain, what you allow to replay in your mind. Not everything deserves access to your attention. Some thoughts are not yours, they're invitations, and you are allowed to decline them. Stillness is not stagnation, it's strategy. If you've felt called to slow down, to step back, to observe more than you speak, honor that. You're being repositioned. Warriors aren't always loud. Leaders aren't always visible. Some of the most powerful shifts happen in silence, where discipline is built and discernment sharpens. Remember this, the enemy only attacks what it fears losing control over. It doesn't chase what already belongs to it. The resistance you're facing is proof that you're no longer predictable. You're no longer easily influenced. You're no longer moving unconsciously, and that awareness changes everything. So stand steady. You don't need to rush your victory. You don't need to force recognition. What's forming in you is durable, and when the moment comes, it will speak for itself. There's one final layer you need to see, and it ties everything together. The enemy's greatest strategy isn't the attack itself, it's timing. It strikes when you're tired, when you've been strong for too long without rest, when you've been giving more than you've received. That's when discouragement feels convincing. That's when quitting feels logical. And that's exactly why you must recognize this season for what it is, a threshold. Right now, you are standing between who you were and who you are becoming, and thresholds are uncomfortable by nature. Old support systems don't work the way they used to. Old motivations don't move you anymore. Even old prayers feel like they need new language. This isn't because you've lost faith, it's because your faith is maturing. You're being asked to trust at a higher level without constant reassurance, without visible proof. The enemy wants you to mistake this in between space for failure, to believe that because nothing has fully manifested yet, nothing is happening. But some of the most important work happens beneath the surface. Roots deepen before branches grow. Foundations are reinforced before elevation. What looks like delay is often stabilization. That's why you've been called to rest in a different way, not escape, not numbness, but intentional stillness, learning when to pause without giving up, learning when to say no without guilt, learning when to protect your energy without explaining yourself. These are not selfish acts, they are survival skills for the chosen. You may notice that your tolerance for chaos has decreased. What you once ignored now disturbs your peace. What you once entertained now drains you. That's discernment refining itself. You're being trained to recognize misalignment quickly, because where you're going, distraction will be costly. And here's the part that should bring you peace: the enemy is already running out of options. It repeats tactics because it has no new ones. If confusion didn't work, it tries delay. If delay didn't work, it tries discouragement. If discouragement didn't work, it tries isolation. But notice, none of these have removed you from your path. You're still here, still aware, still becoming. That means the season is shifting. Very soon, what felt like constant resistance will start to loosen. Conversations will change. Opportunities will align without force. You won't have to chase what's meant for you. It will recognize you. And the clarity that arrives will make you grateful you didn't quit during the fog. When that happens, you'll understand why this pressure was necessary, why your strength had to be tested, why your discernment had to sharpen. You'll carry your calling with humility, not ego, with stability, not desperation. And that's dangerous in the best way to anything that thrives on fear and confusion. So if you needed confirmation, this is it. The enemy knows you're chosen. That's why this has been happening. But what it failed to account for is your endurance, your awareness, your willingness to stay aligned even when it was hard. Hold steady. You are closer than you think.